Terry Scott's palms were slick with sweat as he gripped the podium, his knuckles white from the strain. The auditorium was packed with 100 alien species, their eyes boring into him, waiting for him to speak. Terry knew he had to nail this speech. He was the first human ever accepted into the Galactic Diplomatic Academy, and this was his chance to prove that humans belonged on the galactic stage. The arrogant Crenium delegation sat in the front row, led by Ambassador Janus. They sneered at Terry, clearly believing he was inferior to them. The Crenium had invaded Earth years ago, seeking to subjugate humanity and steal the planet's resources. Despite being technologically outmatched, the humans had fought back with guerrilla tactics and sheer grit, resisting the Crenium assault. Terry took a deep breath. He had to make the aliens understand. He had to show them the strength and resilience of the human spirit. If he failed, the Crenium would see it as proof that humans were weak and primitive. They would redouble their efforts to conquer Earth and enslave his people. Terry began to speak, his voice ringing out clear and strong. Representatives of the Galactic Council, I stand before you today as an emissary of Earth. I am here to tell you the story of my people's struggle against the Crenium invaders. Terry paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. The auditorium was silent, the alien delegates hanging on his every word. He took a deep breath and continued. In the aftermath of our victory against the Crenium, Earth was a shattered world. Our cities were reduced to rubble, our population decimated, but we did not despair. We did not give up. Instead, we rose from the ashes, determined to rebuild our civilization stronger than ever before. Terry's voice grew more passionate as he spoke. In the years that followed, humanity made incredible technological leaps. We developed efficient cold fusion reactors that provided limitless clean energy. We constructed vast orbital habitats, allowing us to expand beyond the confines of our planet. And we launched our first interstellar colony ships, carrying brave pioneers to new worlds. The Crenium delegation shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their expressions a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. Terry pressed on, his confidence growing with each word. But our progress was not just technological. The war had changed us as a people. Old divisions and differences seemed meaningless in the face of what we had endured. Humans from all nations and backgrounds came together, united in common purpose. It was a cultural renaissance, a time of unprecedented cooperation and unity. Terry's tone grew more somber as he recounted humanity's early encounters with other alien species. As we ventured into the stars, we quickly learned that not all races were friendly. Our first contact with the Zoraxians ended in bloodshed when they attacked one of our exploration vessels without provocation. But humanity was no longer the same species the Crenium had once invaded. We had grown stronger, more advanced. When the Zoraxian warships engaged our Earth defense fleet near the Galar Nebula, they were in for a surprise. Terry's eyes blazed with pride as he recounted the historic battle. Our ships were faster, our weapons more precise. We outmaneuvered the Zoraxians at every turn, using tactics they had never seen before. In the end, the mighty Zoraxian armada was reduced to a field of debris, while our fleet emerged victorious with minimal losses. The tense energy in the room spiked as Terry turned to the human-alien trade conflict. Even as we prevailed against military aggression, economic warfare soon followed. The holodisplay flashed, showing human freighters at alien spaceports. As our rebuilding efforts bore fruit and our economy grew, humanity extended the hand of commerce to friendly worlds. The images shifted, replaced by a Zoraxian and Crenium shaking appendages. But our old foes conspired behind closed doors to strangle our trade in its infancy, through unfair tariffs and embargo. Angry muttering rippled through the auditorium. Terry nodded. Thankfully, we had a champion in Ambassador Nathan Reeves. The man's stern visage appeared on screen, drawing appreciative nods from the human delegation. Terry continued. In an impassioned address to the Galactic Trade Council, Reeves laid bare the Crenium's foul play. He called for the equal treatment humanity had rightfully earned. Reeves' voice boomed from the display. Discrimination has no place in this august body. I ask that you judge humanity by our actions, not the lies of our detractors." Reeves's words struck a chord. The Council voted to abolish the illegal sanctions, securing humanity's economic future and proving our growing influence in galactic affairs. Applause broke out from the human seats and several alien delegations. Terry paused, scanning the audience. Ambassador Janus glared daggers at him, his scowl etched in deep lines. Terry met his gaze unflinchingly. The Krenim would not cow humanity again. Even in the face of adversity, humans continued to enrich the galaxy. Terry highlighted the revolutionary breakthroughs of Dr. Eliza Nakamura. Her pioneering artificial gravity research transformed space travel for all races. The display now showed a shimmering hologram of an alien skyline. And who could forget the sublime works of artist Luca Sorrentino? His transcendent holographic sculptures have moved the hearts of countless worlds. Terry's voice rose with righteous anger as he addressed the recent pirate incursion crisis. While the Galactic Council dithered, a Zoraxian warlord named Karag the Merciless unleashed terror on the frontier. His fleet of stolen ships raided human and alien colonies with impunity, leaving devastation in their wake. The auditorium was deathly silent, the delegates riveted by Terry's words. But humanity would not stand idly by while innocents suffered. Admiral Elena Ivanova of the Earth Defense Fleet took decisive action, launching a daring counteroffensive against Karag's armada. The holo display flared to life, depicting the dramatic battle of the Sargasso Nebula. Sleek human warships clashed with the motley pirate fleet, trading blistering salvos of plasma fire. The EDS Titan, Admiral Ivanova's flagship, plunged into the heart of the enemy formation, guns blazing. Though outnumbered and outgunned, our brave sailors fought with unmatched skill and courage. Explosions bloomed in the void as human torpedoes found their marks, tearing pirate vessels apart in gouts of flame. Our advanced tactics and cutting-edge weapons proved more than a match for Karag's brute force. We outmaneuvered his ships at every turn, whittling down his fleet with surgical precision. But the battle was far from over. Terry's eyes flashed as he described Admiral Ivanova's desperate gambit. In a bold move, the Admiral ordered a boarding party to infiltrate Karag's command ship. Led by the legendary Space Marine Captain Marcus Flynn, our troops breached the enemy hull and fought their way to the bridge, deck by bloody deck. The scene shifted to a dimly lit corridor, where armored Marines traded fire with pirate defenders. Captain Flynn spearheaded the assault, his plasma rifle spitting death as he advanced. No foe could stand before him and his battle-hardened warriors. At last they reached the bridge. The holo display zoomed in on a hulking figure clad in spikes and chains, Karag the Merciless himself. The warlord attacked with a roar, his vicious blade seeking human flesh, but Captain Flynn met him head-on, parrying the blow with his combat knife. The two titans clashed in a whirlwind of steel, neither giving quarter. The audience held its breath as the duel raged. Flynn ducked and weaved, dodging Karag's furious strikes. With a final surge of strength, the captain drove his knife into the warlord's throat. Karag collapsed. His reign of terror ended at last. Terry paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. With their leader defeated, the pirate armada surrendered. The pirate incursion crisis was over, and countless lives had been saved by human courage and resolve. He fixed the Zoraxian delegation with a pointed stare. Let this be a lesson to those who prey on the innocent. Humanity will never back down from tyranny, no matter the odds. Terry's words hung heavy in the air as he took a breath, his gaze sweeping over the assembled delegates. But even as we celebrate our victories, a new threat looms on the horizon. The holo display flickered to life, revealing a star map of the Krenim-Zoraxian border region. Our intelligence operatives have uncovered disturbing evidence of a secret alliance between the Krenim and Zoraxians. Murmurs of unease rippled through the auditorium as Terry zoomed in on the map, highlighting key locations. Satellite imagery shows massive troop buildups and weapons tests along their shared border. The scale of these preparations suggests they are readying for war. Terry's face darkened as he brought up a blurry image of a gargantuan spherical object. Most troubling of all are the rumors of a devastating new weapon, a planet killer codenamed Deathbringer. If these reports are true, this monstrosity could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The human delegation erupted into heated discussion, their voices tinged with fear and anger. Terry raised a hand, calling for calm. In response to this grave threat, Admiral Ivanova has mobilized the 1st Expeditionary Force under the command of General Maximilian Steele, a hero of the Krenim Human War. The holodisplay now showed a fleet of sleek, deadly warships, emblazoned with the crest of the Earth Defense Fleet. As we speak, the 1st Expeditionary Force is en route to the border region, ready to counter any Krenim-Zoraxian aggression and safeguard the peace. Suddenly, an urgent message flashed across the screen. Terry's eyes widened as he read the report. I have just received word that the 1st Expeditionary Force has encountered a Krenim-Zoraxian task force, led by none other than Ambassador Janus himself. The auditorium buzzed with tension as a live feed from the EDF flagship filled the display. 2 fleets faced each other across the starry void, weapons charged and ready. Aboard the bridge of the EDS Titan, General Steele stood tall, his weathered face set in grim determination. Ambassador Janus, I urge you to stand down. Steele's voice crackled over the comlink, calm but firm. Let us resolve this matter peacefully, as civilized beings should. Janus's sneering visage filled the screen, his eyes glinting with malice. You have no authority here, human. Withdraw your ships immediately, or suffer the consequences of your insolence. Diplomacy? Janus scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. The time for talk is over. You have intruded into our sovereign space, and we will not tolerate this affront. His clawed finger stabbed at the screen. This is your final warning, General. Retreat now, or be destroyed. On the Titan's bridge, Steele exchanged a tense glance with his first officer. The 2 fleets hung in space, locked in a perilous standoff as the galaxy held its breath. The slightest miscalculation could spark a catastrophic conflict that would engulf them all. In the auditorium, Terry gripped the podium, his eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. The fate of billions hung in the balance as human and alien stood on the brink of war once more. The future of the galaxy would be forged in the crucible of this moment as 2 old enemies faced each other across the stars. As the tense standoff between the human and Krenim-Zoraxian fleets stretched on, Terry's voice cut through the charged silence. General Steele, Ambassador Janus, I have urgent news that changes everything. All eyes turned to the auditorium's holodisplay as Terry brought up a scrambled comm channel. A group of Krenim and Zoraxian defectors have reached out to us, offering critical intelligence on the Deathbringer weapon and their leaders' war plans. Gasps of shock echoed through the chamber. On the EDS Titan's bridge, General Steele leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Defectors? Can we trust them? I believe we can, Terry replied, his face grim. They're led by Commander Zoran, a top Zoraxian strategist, and Lieutenant Kira, a Krenim officer. Both have grown disillusioned with their leader's aggressive agenda and fear the consequences of galactic war. General Steele nodded, his mind racing. They needed that intel, but extracting the defectors from hostile space would be a deadly gamble. He turned to his comm officer. Get me Captain Flynn. I have a mission for him and his Space Marines. The scene shifted to a dimly lit hangar bay, where a squad of battle-hardened Marines prepped their gear, under Captain Flynn's watchful eye. Listen up, he barked, his voice cutting through the clatter of weapons checks. We're going in hot to extract a high-value package. Expect heavy resistance. Failure is not an option. As the Marines boarded their stealth shuttle, the mood was tense but determined. They were the best of the best, handpicked for this crucial op. Failure meant not just their own deaths, but potentially billions more. The shuttle sliced through the void, darting between patrols and sensor nets as it penetrated deep into Krenim-Zoraxian space. In the cockpit, the pilot's hands flew over the controls, sweat beading on his forehead as he pushed the craft to its limits. At last, they reached the rendezvous point, a remote asteroid base. The Marines stormed out, weapons ready, only to be met by a hail of plasma fire from Krenim's Oraxian troops. Alarms blared as the two sides clashed in a brutal firefight, energy bolts crisscrossing the hallways. Captain Flynn led the charge, his rifle spitting death as he advanced. "Push forward," he roared over the din of battle. "We need to reach the defectors." Step by blood-soaked step, the Marines fought their way deeper into the base, leaving a trail of shattered enemies in their wake. At last, they reached the defectors' hidden bunker. Commander Zoran and Lieutenant Kira were there, their faces lined with fear and resolve. "Thank the stars you made it," Zoran said, clasping Flynn's hand. "We must hurry, reinforcements are on their way." The Marines formed a protective cordon around the defectors as they raced back to the shuttle, plasma bolts nipping at their heels. They piled aboard, slamming the hatch shut as the engines roared to life. But the base was now on high alert, enemy ships swarming like angry hornets. The shuttle shuddered under a barrage of fire, shields straining. Flynn gritted his teeth, watching the readouts flash red. They couldn't take much more of this. Suddenly a squadron of human fighters dropped out of warp, guns blazing. Leading the charge was Lieutenant Jake Maverick Hawkins, his voice crackling over the comm. "Heard you could use a hand, Captain. We'll cover you." The fighters danced through the enemy formation, missiles and plasma lancing out to shatter Krenim's Oraxian ships. Hawkins whooped as his guns tore a frigate apart, the debris spinning away in a glittering cloud. Under the fighter screen, the Marine shuttle punched through the blockade, rocketing away from the base and back towards the safety of human space. In the main hold, the defectors slumped in their seats, exhausted but alive. They had made it, and with them came the key to stopping the Deathbringer. As the shuttle docked with the EDS Titan, analysts pored over the stolen intel, their faces growing ever grimmer. The Deathbringer was even more terrifying than they had feared, a planet-killing superlaser fueled by the exotic substance Zorfanium. Worse, the Krenim's Oraxian alliance was mere days away from testing the weapon on an uninhabited world, a final precursor to using it to cow the Galactic Council into submission. The stakes couldn't be higher. The fate of the galaxy hung by a thread. On the Titan's bridge, General Steele clenched his jaw as he studied the tactical displays. The expeditionary force still faced a massive Krenim's Oraxian fleet, now surely enraged by the defection of their own. Conflict seemed inevitable, but armed with this new knowledge, perhaps they could avert catastrophe. Steele turned to his comm officer, his voice low and intense. "Get me a priority channel to Earth Command and the Galactic Council. We have a war to stop." As the shocking revelation of the Krenim's Oraxian defectors reverberated through the auditorium, General Steele's face filled the view screen. "Admiral Ivanova, we have a golden opportunity to end this threat once and for all. I propose an immediate strike on the Deathbringer's construction site." Admiral Ivanova nodded grimly. "Agreed, General. We can't let that monstrosity become operational. Assemble your best Space Marines for an infiltration mission. We'll provide the distraction." The EDS Titan's bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew prepared for battle. In the hangar bay, Captain Flynn rallied his hand-picked team of Space Marines, now joined by Commander Zoran and Lieutenant Kira. "Listen up," Flynn barked. "We're going to hit that base hard and fast. Zoran, Kira, you're our guides. Get us to that control room." The defectors nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew the base's layout like the back of their hands. As the infiltration team boarded their stealth shuttle, the main human fleet dropped out of warp above Zarax Prime. The Krenim's Oraxian armada was waiting for them, weapons charged and ready. The void erupted with the fury of 1,000 suns as the two fleets clashed. Laser beams and missiles crisscrossed the battlefield, slamming into shields and hulls with devastating force. On the planet's surface, the stealth shuttle darted through the chaos, evading enemy fire as it hurtled towards the base. With a bone-jarring impact, it crashed through the outer wall, disgorging the Space Marines into a hail of plasma bolts. The infiltration team fought like demons, blasting through squads of Krenim's Oraxian guards and sentry turrets. Zoran and Kira guided them through the labyrinthine corridors, their insider knowledge proving invaluable. At last they reached the control room. The doors hissed open, revealing the twisted visage of Dr. Malvok. "Just too late," the Zoraxian scientist cackled, his clawed hand slamming down on the activation button. The Deathbringer hummed to life, its super laser swiveling to target the human fleet above. But Zoran was already moving, his fingers flying over the control console as he hacked into the weapon's systems. Flynn intercepted him, slamming the butt of his rifle into the scientist's face. They grappled on the floor, trading vicious blows. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. The Deathbringer shuddered violently, the Zorfanium core overloading. "It's going to blow," Kira shouted. "We need to get out of here." The infiltration team raced through the crumbling base, dodging falling debris and fighting off the last desperate Krenim Zoraxian defenders. Explosions ripped through the structure, the Deathbringer consuming itself in a cataclysmic fireball. Flynn and his team burst out of the base just as it collapsed behind them, a roiling mushroom cloud rising into the sky. They sprinted for the extraction point, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. Above, the tide of the space battle had turned. The human fleet pressed their advantage, the Krenim Zoraxian ships falling back in disarray. Cheers erupted on the bridges of the human vessels as the enemy flagship exploded, torn apart by a barrage of torpedoes. As the last of the Krenim Zoraxian defenders fell, the human fleet regrouped, their ships battered but unbowed. Cheers of victory echoed across the comm channels, the crews celebrating their hard-won triumph. But the celebration was short-lived. Sensors blared in warning as a massive Krenim Zoraxian reinforcement fleet dropped out of warp, led by the KZS Imperator, Ambassador Janus's flagship. The enemy ships arrayed themselves in a vast wall of bristling guns and armored hulls, poised to crush the weakened human forces. On the bridge of the EDS Titan, General Steele gritted his teeth. They had come too far to fail now. He turned to his comm officer. "Get me Dr. Sorensen. Tell her it's time." In the Titan's weapons lab, Dr. Lena Sorensen and her team worked feverishly, prepping the secret weapon they had developed for just this scenario, the Singularity Bomb. The device hummed with barely contained power, a miniature black hole waiting to be unleashed. "General, the bomb is armed and ready," Dr. Sorensen reported, her voice tight with tension. "Launch it," Steele ordered. The Singularity Bomb streaked from the Titan's launch bay, hurtling towards the heart of the Krenim Zoraxian fleet. The enemy ships opened fire, filling the void with a storm of plasma, but the bomb's advanced shielding held firm. Proximity alarms wailed on the Imperator's bridge as the bomb drew near. Ambassador Janus's eyes widened in horrified realization. "All ships, take evasive action. Get us out of here." But it was too late. The Singularity Bomb detonated, a blinding flash of light heralding the birth of a ravenous black hole. The Singularity tore into the Krenim Zoraxian fleet like a beast unleashed, crushing ships and crews alike with its immense gravitational pull. The Imperator shuddered violently as the black hole's edge caught it, the mighty warship's hull buckling and tearing under the strain. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, crew members screaming as they were pulled into the hungry void. Janus clung to his command chair, his face a mask of rage and desperation. He slammed his fist on the comm panel. "All remaining ships, ram the humans. Take them with us." Like a swarm of maddened insects, the surviving Krenim Zoraxian vessels surged forward, heedless of the black hole's pull. They plunged towards the human fleet, guns blazing in a final suicidal charge. "All ships concentrate fire on the incoming vessels," Admiral Ivanova bellowed. "We will not go down without a fight." The human fleet unleashed a blistering barrage, missiles and laser beams lancing out to meet the onrushing enemy. Ships on both sides exploded in brilliant fireballs, the debris swallowed by the insatiable Singularity. The void of space lit up with the fiery deaths of countless vessels, human and alien alike. The two fleets collided in a massive, cataclysmic explosion that seemed to shake the very fabric of the universe. On the EDS Titan's bridge, General Steele watched the apocalyptic battle unfold, his face grim. They had struck a devastating blow against the Krenim-Zoraxian alliance, but at what cost? How many brave men and women had given their lives to secure this victory? The singularity raged on, devouring the shattered remnants of the enemy fleet. The Imperator, its once proud hull now a twisted ruin, vanished into the black hole's maw, taking Ambassador Janus with it. Steele turned to Admiral Ivanova, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. "Send word to Earth Command. The Krenim-Zoraxian threat has been neutralized, but the war is far from over." Ivanova nodded grimly, her eyes haunted by the scenes of destruction. "We've won the battle, but the struggle continues. We must remain vigilant, for there will always be those who seek to destroy us." The Titan limped away from the battlefield, its scarred hull a testament to the bravery and sacrifice of its crew. In the ship's medbay, the wounded groaned and cried out, the medics working tirelessly to save those they could. Captain Flynn, his armor blackened and scorched, helped a limping Commander Zoran to a nearby cot. The two warriors clasped hands, a bond forged in the crucible of combat. "We did it," Flynn said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and emotion. "We stopped the Deathbringer. We made a difference." Zoran nodded, his eyes gleaming with a fierce pride. "And we showed the galaxy what humans and aliens can achieve when we stand together against tyranny." In the ruins of the Krenim-Zoraxian base on Zarax Prime, Dr. Sorensen and her team picked through the rubble, searching for any remnants of the Deathbringer technology. They knew that the knowledge they gleaned here could prove invaluable in the battles to come. And in the auditorium, Terry Scott stood tall before the assembled delegates, his voice ringing with the conviction of a man who had witnessed history in the making. The silence of the void was broken only by the hiss of escaping atmosphere and the groan of tortured metal. The aftermath of the cataclysmic battle hung like a pall over the Earth defense fleet. Shattered hulks of once proud ships drifted through the debris field, their crews lost to the cold embrace of space. On the bridge of the EDS Titan, the air was thick with tension and grief. The command crew worked frantically, coordinating rescue efforts and damage control, but their faces were etched with sorrow, their eyes haunted by the ghosts of fallen comrades. General Steele stood at the helm, his weathered face grim as he surveyed the devastation. The weight of command hung heavy on his shoulders, a burden made all the more crushing by the absence of Admiral Ivanova. The Admiral lay in the Titan's medbay, her broken body kept alive by a web of life support systems. She had been critically injured when a Krenim-Zoraxian suicide bomber rammed her flagship, the shockwave slamming her against the bulkhead with bone-shattering force. With Ivanova incapacitated, the fate of the fleet now rested on Steele's shoulders. He had to be the rock, the foundation upon which the survivors could rebuild. But inside, he felt as shattered as the ships drifting outside the viewport. The rescue shuttles darted through the debris field, their crews working tirelessly to pluck survivors from the wreckage. The medbays were overflowing with the wounded, the air filled with the groans of the dying and the stench of burnt flesh. But even in the midst of the carnage, there were glimmers of hope. Tales of heroism and sacrifice began to spread through the fleet, of brave souls who had given their lives so that others might live. The survivors clung to these stories like lifelines, using them to keep the darkness at bay. As the rescue operations stretched into the long hours, a hail from the Galactic Council broke through the chatter on the bridge. The Council had witnessed the destruction wrought by the Singularity bomb and the lengths to which humanity had gone to defend itself. They had voted to intervene, to broker a ceasefire between the battered human fleet and the remnants of the Krenim-Zoraxian alliance. A delegation of Council mediators, led by the Arcturian diplomat Zaxos, arrived on the scene, their sleek shuttles gliding through the debris field with eerie grace. They requested an immediate audience with General Steele and the surviving human commanders aboard the Titan. Steele received them in the Titan's war room, the air heavy with the weight of history. The human commanders stood stiffly at attention, their faces etched with weariness and grief. Across the table, the council mediators sat in silence, their alien features inscrutable. But it was the figure at the far end of the table that drew every eye in the room. Ambassador Janus, his once proud bearing shattered, his eyes haunted by the horrors he had witnessed. He had miraculously survived the destruction of his flagship, plucked from the wreckage by a council rescue shuttle. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the Titan's engines. Finally Zaxo spoke, his voice a soothing rumble. "We have come to end this conflict," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "Too much blood has been spilled, too many lives lost. It is time for peace." Steele's jaw clenched, his eyes hard. "Peace?" he growled. "After everything they've done, after all the lives they've taken?" But Zaxos held up a hand, his expression implacable. "Further conflict will only lead to mutual annihilation," he said. "The Council has voted to impose a ceasefire, to bring both sides to the negotiating table. It is the only way forward." Steele's gaze locked with Janus, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. For a moment, it seemed as if the human general would refuse, that he would order his fleet to continue the fight to the bitter end. But then Janus spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Enough," he said, his eyes haunted. "No more death, no more destruction. We must find another way." And with those words, the fate of the galaxy shifted. The ceasefire was agreed, the terms hammered out in a tense and emotionally charged meeting that stretched long into the night. As the Council mediators departed and the ceasefire took effect, the human fleet began the long and painful process of rebuilding. The survivors, forever changed by their experiences, vowed to honor the sacrifices of their fallen comrades and to work towards a future of peace and cooperation with their alien neighbors. But even as the guns fell silent and the fires of war began to cool, the scars left by the conflict would linger long into the future. The survivors knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that the wounds of the past would not easily heal. But they also knew that they had no choice but to try, to build a better tomorrow from the ashes of yesterday. Terry's voice dropped to a somber whisper as he revealed the true cost of humanity's victory. The war with the Krenim-Zoraxian alliance left deep scars on the human psyche that will take generations to heal. Our once mighty Earth defense fleet is now a shadow of its former self, struggling to maintain order in the face of new threats. He gripped the podium, his knuckles white. The Galactic Council, weakened by the conflict, finds itself divided and ineffectual as tensions rise between fractured worlds. Terry's gaze swept over the audience, lingering on the haunted faces of those who had seen the horrors of war firsthand. "And what of our heroes? Their fates are bittersweet." He spoke of Admiral Ivanova, her indomitable spirit broken by the weight of her losses. Though she survived her injuries, the Admiral was forced to retire from active duty, the toll of her responsibilities too great to bear. His voice cracked as he recounted the fate of General Steele. Haunted by the decisions he made and the lives he sacrificed, Steele resigned his commission and disappeared into self-imposed exile, seeking solace in the far reaches of space. Terry's eyes shone with unshed tears as he turned to Commander Zoran and Lieutenant Kira. Though hailed as heroes by their human allies, they find themselves ostracized and hunted by their own people, branded as traitors for daring to stand against the tide of war. As he neared the end of his speech, Terry's gaze roamed over the stunned faces of the alien diplomats. Ambassador Janus seemed to shrink in his seat, his once proud bearing diminished by the weight of his guilt. Others, like Zaxos, nodded slowly in understanding, a newfound respect in their eyes for the young human who dared to speak truth to power. Terry's final words hung in the air, a heavy silence blanketing the auditorium. The future is uncertain, and the scars of the past will take generations to heal. But one thing is clear. Humanity has finally taken its place among the stars, and the galaxy will never be the same again. He stepped back from the podium, his message delivered. The weight of his words settled over the room like a shroud, the implications of his speech sinking in. The war had changed everything, forever altering the balance of power in the galaxy. As Terry descended from the stage, the silence was broken by a lone clap, then another. Soon the entire auditorium was on its feet, a thunderous applause echoing through the chamber. The human delegation stood tall, their faces etched with pride and sorrow, the sacrifices of their fallen comrades forever etched in their memories. In the midst of the ovation, Ambassador Janus rose from his seat, his expression unreadable. He approached Terry, his steps measured and deliberate. The room fell silent once more, the tension palpable as the two adversaries faced each other. Janus extended his hand, his voice low and strained. "Your words have opened my eyes, Mr. Scott. The cost of our actions, the price of our pride, is higher than I ever imagined." Terry hesitated for a moment before clasping the ambassador's hand, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "It's never too late to learn from our mistakes, Ambassador. The future is ours to shape if we have the courage to do so." As the two men shook hands, a ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. The gesture, small though it was, spoke volumes of the long road ahead. The wounds of war would not heal overnight, but perhaps with time and understanding, a new era of peace could dawn. Terry knew that the challenges ahead would be daunting. The Earth Defense Fleet, once the pride of humanity, lay in shambles, its ranks decimated by the brutal conflict. The Galactic Council, fractured and weakened, struggled to maintain order in a galaxy on the brink of chaos. And the heroes of the war, those who had sacrificed everything for the cause, now found themselves adrift in a changed universe. Admiral Ivanova, the indomitable leader of the fleet, had been forced to confront the bitter truth that even the strongest among them could break under the strain of war. General Steele, the brilliant tactician who had led the charge against the Krenim-Zoraxian alliance, had disappeared into the void, unable to bear the weight of the lives he had taken in the name of victory. And Commander Zoran and Lieutenant Kira, the brave defectors who had risked everything to stand against their own people, now found themselves hunted and reviled, their sacrifices forgotten in the aftermath of the conflict. As Terry made his way through the crowd of well-wishers and dignitaries, his mind raced with the challenges that lay ahead. The war had changed everything, and the future was a blank canvas, waiting to be painted in the colors of hope and despair. But one thing was certain: humanity had earned its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The sacrifices of the fallen, the scars of the survivors, would forever be etched in the annals of history, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of a species that had dared to reach for the heavens. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.